Thank you for having us and for the persistence, and I'm happy to be here. Actually, no, I'm so not happy to be here. I'd rather be on a beach, but so for both our sakes, I'll make it very quick. Just a very quick introduction about who we are. We're a startup accelerator. We started out in Cairo in October 2011. And just a very brief idea of why we started, because it's relevant to this talk. We started out because our main partner in Cairo is a VC fund called Sawari Ventures. And the partners of Sawari Ventures, Hani Sumbati and Ahmed Al-Alfi, they actually started out by creating a VC fund. It was a typical VC fund, investing $500,000 up to $3 million in a company. And they wanted to find companies. And they found fantastic ideas, but they weren't ready to take 1 million. And having money isn't always a blessing. If you give a company that doesn't know how to manage 1 million pounds, $1 million, I mean, it will die and it will take you down with it and you lose that money. And this is where Flat 6 Apps came from. There's a movement happening, they realized, but it's a grassroots movement. And it's very key for any entrepreneurial ecosystem to understand that it's not one player. It's not just the money, it's the talent. It's having all the players in the market. The beauty of accelerators is that by default, by their nature, they have to create those ecosystems. They have to create those players. Their success is based on having universities that are supporting entrepreneurship to have the pipeline come through, on reaching out to the angel investors and trying to create more angel investors and bringing them on board because they need to have their graduates secure funding when they come out, on reaching out to the government and trying to lobby to make it easy to set up companies. So they're fantastic tools to really, really catalyze and grow and mature an ecosystem. So I'll be touching upon those points throughout my talk. We started out in Cairo. In 2013, we went to Saudi. We were the first private startup accelerator in the kingdom with our partners Qutuf al-Riyada. And then we went to Abu Dhabi. Our partners were the Media Zone Authority there. So it's a media accelerator. And within the next 3 months, we're having 3 more locations. So excuse us if we're just a little bit busy. So that's quickly us. We're a seed accelerator, so we start anywhere from an idea to a company that has an MVP. This is a slide about our region. It's a lot of statistics, but what the slide says is there's so many of us. Don't even try to kick our ass. My niece knows to use her iPad way better than I do, and she's 3 years old. It's shameful. Because of us investing in a lot of bright entrepreneurs, the disposable and purchasing power of the economy is growing across, and everyone thinks it's cool to be working in tech, so we have the talents. That really is what the slide says. It's an economy that has it all. We have the market, we have the talent, and there's funding that's coming in now. This is a slide that shows the funding coming into the region, but I'd like to keep that slide to the end, and I'll come back to it because I think it's a better conclusion. What I'll go is into the trends of the ecosystem in the MENA region. Not to educate anyone on what makes entrepreneurship work, because probably everyone here knows it better than I do, but we've identified the 4 main ingredients. We think it's a chemical formula, and the 4 main ingredients to make it happen is the talent. How do you equip them? The catalysts and the vision. One at a time. The talent is, do you have the people that are ready to make those companies? And 5 years in the industry, I've come to realize you cannot create entrepreneurs. You support them, but they're there or not. An entrepreneur is a talent. It's not even a talent, it's a hunger. You see it in their eyes, and those are the ones that are made for success. It isn't a cool idea. They're not trying to mimic it. It's survival, it's make it or break it. For them, that company is their lives. They're not trying out something. They're already decided they're going to succeed. It's just a matter of just pushing through the barriers and making it happen. Equipment can be working spaces, can be the mentors, very important for them. It could be actual hardware accelerators that help them. All those are things that testing equipments, those are very important. The catalysts are the little things that are very invisible and we don't see, but they're very important. How easy is it for them to set up a company? How easy is it to reach out to an investor and ask? Availability of information for us in the region is possibly the #1 biggest issue every single one of them faces. They can't get market statistics. And finally, the vision. And there's a reason why I have it fourth, because I tend to really, really try to avoid governments. But they do make a difference, and they are key. How they support is very important. Most of the time, my humble opinion is that I'd like to keep government completely out of it, let the markets play, but the government's key role is just not to create hurdles and remove them. Make it easy. People mentioned, like the previous panel spoke of taxation, ease of setting up. You're right, in Abu Dhabi, it takes me 6 to 7 months to be able to set up a company. In Egypt, it takes longer. So things like that just make it easier. If it's within the government's vision to support it, it makes everyone's life easier. Taking it further down, digging in a little bit deeper, those are, again, like speaking of a chemical equation, those are the different elements that we think are very important. The education, how educated you have, what are the number of graduates that come out of universities, could you steer talent into a certain direction that you think is important. The availability of funding, I mean, I don't need to speak about that, I presume. The market, purchasing power, legal support, that is their worst nightmare. How do I strike up a term sheet? They can't afford lawyers. So there are a number of initiatives now across the region to do things like have a database of template term sheets with definitions of what every single term means. Because you go at them, and I'm on the finance side of things, so I'm actually the evil person. But you go to an entrepreneur and tell him, you give him a term sheet with tag-alongs, investing, and drag-alongs and tag-alongs, and it all sounds so fancy. He's trying to stay looking smart, but it's way out of his comfort zone. How do you equip the entrepreneurs with that? How do you enable them to make good decisions? And the other something that I've often come across is that entrepreneurs are techies, they're geeks. And the biggest hurdle they always face is how do they go from product-oriented, from being able to create their product, to being managers, to managing a company. And it's a whole different ballgame. Creating a product is their comfort zone. Taking them out of that comfort zone into managing a company is not an easy task. Startup accelerators help a lot on that. And then I think it's the role of VC investors to also roll up their sleeve and really be hands-on. And then finally, all the black boxes are the stuff where the government comes in, the administration, the bureaucracy, and the political stability. So this is generally a quick summary of the region. We have all the white ones. So all those white boxes, we have them in abundance. What remains to be an issue for us is the bureaucracy that is found across in almost all the countries, even the ones that boast making it easy, even the best of us, are still very difficult. Political stability, I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. We've learned to live with it. And then one of the biggest issues of being able to cross borders, residency and visas. How easy is it? We say we're 30, 50 million, we say we're one region, but it's actually very difficult going from one country to the other. So the next few slides, I'll just touch upon a few of the major economies, the major countries particularly. Those are a lot of pictures. I'm not going to go through one of them, but I just wanted to give an idea of how it is actually very diverse and different, the entire region. So Egypt is we're 90 million. 90 million, I mean, that's a big number. No, I can't even count it on my fingers. So we have the market. We have very strong engineering talent, but then we're faced with the other side of that coin. How do you maintain that talent? How do you retain them? How do you keep them inside? And it's very difficult because almost every single one of our portfolio companies, the #1 complaint is, I get the engineers, they're very talented, we try to teach them a lot more, and then within 5 years, they're gone because they get better offers in multinationals abroad. So retaining talent is one of the biggest issues that we're trying to deal with. And the problems will remain to be that we clearly have, it's not easy. I mean, it's easy for companies to come set up theoretically in Egypt, but it's not easy for them to come in because there are political issues, it's perceived that slightly as unsafe, bureaucracy makes it very difficult, and the number one barrier is that we don't have funding. So Egypt has the market, but it doesn't have the funding. UAE is quite the opposite. Maybe UAE is actually one of the most advanced markets in the region. The UAE has the talent because it has a huge expat. It has the purchasing power because it is a very wealthy nation, and it does have the political stability. It claims to make it easy for people to come and move and set up companies. It's not as easy, but definitely way along the line. So the UAE is the closest to having some sort of a complete formula. But even that, it's still very young. It's very focused on consumer products. It's very focused on mobile apps. You still haven't seen innovation coming out of the UAE. And I think not out of the region, and I could almost claim not out of even Malta. I think the next step for us to really, really mature is that we start creating products that no one else in the world has. It isn't a tweaking of a product that we've seen in the US or in London. It's a whole new innovation. It's a patentable something that no one else has. Saudi Arabia is big. Saudi Arabia has a lot of money, but you can't get to Saudi Arabia. They don't want you there. So it becomes very difficult. So it's a very closed market. It has a lot of investors. It has very limited technical abilities and talent. People can't find good developers, so they have to export them from elsewhere. But it does have the strong purchasing power and the liquidity, and it's the second biggest market. Saudi Arabia is the top consumer of YouTube around the world, one of the second biggest consumers of e-commerce around the world. So they spend. Now going to the Levant, Jordan was one of the pioneers of entrepreneurship in the region. They were the first to have Oasis 500, one of the very first startup accelerators in the region. But the problem that Jordan has is it's simple. It's a very small market. So they have to grow. They did the mistake of creating products that were local. And so very quickly they realized they can't sustain local products. Which is one of the benefits of the region, is that it's very easy to create products that are immediately regional, and then once they're regional, you can make them international. There's Lebanon, another Levant country. Now Lebanon, actually the government did a fantastic thing. Well, not the government, but the central bank. The central bank, Lebanon is now one of the most active ecosystems in the entire region. It's beautiful. And that was because of one genius idea from the central bank. And they said they vouched up to $400 million to guarantee the losses of any bank who invests in a VC fund. And the beauty of that scheme is that if you think about it, they provided the funding without really interrupting the market, without coming in and crowding out the private investors. All they did was they just incentivized the private investors to go in and invest. And the boom that has happened in the market since that happened is just unmatched anywhere. There's been more than $250 million now that are in the market, all the way from seed up until Series C investments. You see expats coming from outside of Lebanon to come back into the country and start up their companies in Lebanon, because it's even cheaper to set up a company in Lebanon than it is elsewhere. And they've really, really made it easy for companies to set up. Foreign ownership is open. So just one tiny initiative, speaking of vision, from a government could have such an effect on the entire ecosystem. Tunisia, so now going on to North Africa. Tunisia is doing very well. They have the connection to Europe. That is their biggest asset. And they have great local support, and they have a very young ecosystem. The only problem remains to be funding. They don't have abundance of funding, but that is coming, and there are quite a few interesting institutions. And Morocco is possibly the last, or or the latest in the maturity curve. Morocco reminds me of where Egypt was when we first started 5 years ago. It's still very CSR based. It's still very grant oriented. It's still very, it still has the nice energy we all started off. We want to feel good about it. It's not solid investments. But that is changing as well in Morocco. And for me, that is the ultimate goal of seeing a mature economy. It's when people are investing and they're looking at IRRs. It's when investors understand, angel investors understand, is that it's not about one company. I actually have to have my own portfolio. I have to mimic an investment portfolio. It's when people make losses but come back and make investments. And it's when the entrepreneurs themselves understand how to present themselves. They come in ready. I see entrepreneurs now, they come into Egypt and they have their business plan, their financial model, their investment deck. They top up their game. And just before I move on to the next slide, the entrepreneurship is very self-feeding. If I go back to that first slide that spoke about the 4 ingredients in talent, I still stand by my word that you can create entrepreneurship, but you could help it thrive. Success breeds success. In our very first cycle in Flat 6 Labs Cairo, I remember sitting on the selection committee and we struggled. We had 250 applications and we struggled to find 6 companies that I would put money in. By the last cycle, the 7th cycle, we struggled to only take 10 because there were so many that we would have wanted to put more money in. So it's very, I mean, hearing of good stories make more entrepreneurs rise. When the competition rises and when there are more players in the market, everyone ups their game. The investors up their game, so valuations start becoming more attractive for everyone. We've seen that happen. The entrepreneurs become a lot more knowledgeable in how to present themselves, but also in being able to negotiate deals because they've seen a lot more. And when there are more entrepreneurs and there's more money, the dynamics become so much better. So it's very key to keep growing. It's very key to have more than one player. We don't want to be the only accelerator. We want to see other accelerators. The ultimate will be when we see specialized accelerators. We still don't have that depth in the market. We still don't have the depth to say, I want to do a hardware accelerator alone. But I think very soon we'll be able to do that. And that's when the market, I think, is really, really deep and it has enough players everywhere. So coming back to that slide, and I wanted to come back to it. We say we're 350 million, but I've touched upon that. We're not as unified as we make it seem. You have Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Saudi, and they're connected to some extent. They're a little bit ahead of the game. They have the market, they have the money. And then you have, and they're doing all right. But then you have Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar. And they have a lot of money, they just don't know where to use it. And they're also very closed, but they're very small. They don't have the market. And until they very quickly learn to open up their markets, they'll die out. Because what they've been doing so far is that they're just pumping money into the economy. The government is pumping money into the ecosystem. But that is going to disrupt the ecosystem very fast. So I think governments are trying to learn that it isn't just the money. You can't keep pumping in. The more you pump in money, if it's not going to be absorbed, you're really creating a lot more negative than positive. And then there's the North African countries, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. Anyone here from Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco? Good, because I wouldn't understand a thing you say. They don't speak Arabic. They think they speak Arabic. It isn't Arabic. I don't know what the hell is it they're speaking. I probably understand Maltese better than I understand the Moroccans or the Tunisians when they speak Arabic. And then finally, there's Sudan and the Sub-Saharan MENA. And they're a completely different market. And it isn't about language this time. It's just a very different culture. If I try to go to Sudan, I wouldn't get them. It's a big part of setting up ecosystems is understanding the subtleties of the market, which is possibly one of the biggest reasons why everywhere we go, we like to have a local market, because those subtleties are very important. Understanding the entrepreneur's mentality. How do you incentivize entrepreneurs is very different. How do you manage the local players is very different from one country to the other. But despite our differences, we complement each other. So Egypt has the market, it has the talent. Saudi has the funding and the UAE has the funding. Beirut is starting, Lebanon is starting to have funding as well, and they also have the entrepreneurs and they're bringing abroad. And you're starting to see it a lot more. You're starting to see a lot more money that has become very savvy in where it goes and crossing borders. I get angel investors from Saudi that say we want to invest in Egypt, and then we have people from Jordan that want to invest in Beirut, and it's growing. The flow of money, at least, maybe not the companies themselves, but the flow as money has become very regional, and that is a fantastic sign for us. So I'll go back to the very first two slides that I skipped. That one. So this is, I personally believe I'm a huge fan of market dynamics. I might be shot down for it, but I am in fact a capitalist. And I believe money is very smart. Money goes to where that's why I like to follow the money. But money goes to where it knows it can make more money. And this shows that in 2014 alone, there was 200 million USD in VC funds raised. And the interesting part is that despite the fact that this is one of the highest funding, in 2015 it was even higher by about 50%. So despite the fact that the number of investments have increased, the value of investments have increased, the number of investments have actually dropped. And that was very interesting. People are making bigger bets now. They used to invest 100,000, 200,000. Now investors are comfortable doing 1 million, 2 million, and more of them are doing that. There's more money coming. The money might be distributed differently. So you'll have Saudi and UAE have the highest number of investors within the region, but the investments are actually happening in Lebanon and Jordan, where there's more talent. And again, this is a fantastic proof of how the money is actually flowing within the ecosystem and within the entire region. There's 50 plus institutional investors across the region, and they're growing exponentially every single year. So it's a growing market, and it's coming. The one thing that we've always aspired to was the proof of every single country that wants to get to it is the exit. Have you proved it? Has it made sense? And even that, finally, we have. In the last few years, there's been a host of different exits that happened the great part about it is that they were all exits that happened from outside the region. And that also is a great proof that there's more money coming in. I think a lot of the international investors are recognizing how big a market it is. Again, my personal concern is that if you look at it, most of the acquisitions that happened so far are all in the consumer market. Souk.com is one of the biggest e-commerce websites we have. Otlub.com is an online food delivery. Talabat is another one exactly the same. Otlub and Talabat were bought out by Rocket Internet. Souk.com was bought out also by Rocket Internet. Fawry was bought out by an American enterprise fund. So there's a lot of activity happening, and a lot of it is money that's coming from outside. So there's interest. But again, all of them are consumer-based products. We still haven't seen true innovation coming out of this region, our region. There's a reason why US investors don't even think we're on the map. We're too far. I wouldn't blame them. But they have abundance of those investments and the likes of those companies in their backyard. They don't need to go to the Middle East. The real growth for us will happen when we, as a region and an ecosystem, start investing more into research and supporting entrepreneurs from a very early stage at the university stage. And it's happening a little, but I think more of it will come soon. So I think that is it. That is a very quick summary of where we are in the region. I've tried to cover everything. If you want to know more about us, there's this book called Startup Rising. It covers the region very well. You might want to read it. Those platforms are also very good in giving statistics and updates. And come meet with us. There are quite a few events happening this year. They're huge. We'd love to see a lot more people there. So thank you all.